Welcome to part 2 of my Get Ready With Me while I tell you guys about my horror story of living with my best friend. So we left off when James and Amy were visiting me, and the very last day of the trip, Amy is acting really weird. At first, Amy claimed she wasn't up to visiting Palo Alto because she just didn't feel like it, but at the last minute, when James and I were literally heading out the door to leave, she randomly changes her mind and she's like, no, actually, I'm gonna come, let's go all together. And we ended up spending the day in Palo Alto, and Amy was acting very off. She didn't talk at all, and it was very clear something was up. But nothing really was revealed that day. We all went to sleep kind of early, and the next day, she and James got on the plane back to our home. At this point, I still had about a month left of my internship, and I began feeling very weary of, what was going to happen when I got back in town, because it was very clear that a very big change was going to happen in our roommate situation from the way Amy was acting. And I texted James, like, hey, has everything been okay with her? And he tells me that he hadn't seen her in weeks because she hadn't even left her room. We started to concoct theories of what could have happened in San Francisco to make her act that way, or maybe what other things in her life were causing her to be moody, but none of them were confirmed until the last day I was at my internship, and Amy texted me, hey, we need to talk, can you FaceTime? And I found it weird that she wanted to talk before I got back to the apartment the next day, and she wanted a call instead of just waiting until I was back. But y'all, the things she revealed during this call were like fucking insane, and she genuinely believed that she was like the victim in the situation. So, what Amy reveals to me is that while we were all in San Francisco together, she went through my phone one night. And she came up with this whole excuse about how she like accidentally ended up going through my phone. Obviously, it was all bullshit. But she basically tells me that she went through my phone, she went through all my texts with James, and she saw our text about how he was uncomfortable with her and how he was basically upset that they were living together and how he wanted me to come back and all of this stuff. And she told me that, she was too offended to continue rooming with us and that she was going to move out. And obviously I was kind of appalled. I had been her friend for years. I trusted her with my phone password. I trusted her with so much in my life. I trusted her enough to live with her. And finding out that while I had opened my apartment to them to live with me, she basically betrayed me by going through my phone, looking through all the texts in my phone. I was like mortified. And she basically was telling me that she was calling before I came back because she was planning to move out. She had already signed a lease for a different apartment by the time she had called me. Like, that is how ready she was to move out. Turns out the month between, her visiting and me coming back, she had told her dad about everything that had happened, and he agreed to basically pay her rent for a different apartment so that she wouldn't have to live with us anymore. But I honestly don't think that she understood how leases work because we had all committed to a year-long lease, meaning that her name was still on the apartment for another 9 months at this point. And it was just very odd to me that she was willing to just move out like that. And when I got back to Seattle the next day, I found out that she had been like concocting up stories to our friends about what had happened. Our mutual friends, like, at first sided with her because before I even knew she was moving out, she was telling everyone, like, Kate's notifications popped up on my phone or popped up on my iPad, and I saw all these horrible things she was saying about me, blah, blah, blah. And the horrible things in question were literally just facts. Like, they weren't anything super insulting. They were just like, she makes me uncomfortable. Mostly text from James saying, like, she makes me uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. And I was just absolutely shocked. And I would have to make a whole nother story time about how the aftermath of this was handled because it was absolutely fucking insane for like 3 to 4 months afterwards. There was so much like battling about, was she gonna pay our rent? Like, was she actually moving out? Whose friends sided with who? But let me just say now, James and I are still living together in this very apartment with a third roommate who I adore now. And yeah, in the end, we're still friends with all of our old friends, and most of them dropped her because of how absolutely insane she handled the situation. And yeah, now she basically has no friends, and I wish her the best.